All right, good morning. Welcome back here to Trader Minute. Great to have you aboard. This morning, as the market was opening, I was chatting with my brother, and we were talking about the market, and he asked, what do you see?" And I said, "It just feels toppy, or it looks toppy, but with no real sign that it's ready to drop yet." Here with the market, and that's really what this morning to me it is about in the market. We're not seeing real buying come in here today. Most things are gaps. So values have changed, but based on gaps, not really on, buy pressure the way that we have seen. And, you take a look at something like an Alibaba here today, it got bought up in the first couple minutes, and it's, a little more sell pressure. It's starting to see a little buy pressure come in, right? So these aren't, absolute breakdowns here or anything that I think is shortable at all. But you could make a better argument that it's buyable with a stop on, the low here that it set about 15 minutes ago. And, a lot of stocks that, that are out there kind of have Bank of America characteristics where they're coming up to this upper band. They've had a monster rally. They're up here at this upper band. And, this is where we can tend to see some, either consolidation or selling, really kind of come in and take place. But at the same time, right? At the same time, Bank of America is up near the upper band, but JP Morgan's not. Right, so it's got some room there to go. It doesn't have that same element, and when we go across stocks and across sectors, there's a lot of this. So it looks a little toppy overall, from a short-term standpoint, but no real catalyst or impetus to sell here just yet. If the market were to end like this, just if it were to end just like this, technicians will look and go, "Ooh, that's a doji star right there." If the market gaps down tomorrow, it's going to get really ugly. Thing about doji stars is they don't really in and of themselves indicate anything, but if it's followed by a gap down in a scenario like this, there's a high probability of sell, but we can go find a lot of these types of setups with doji stars that just gap up the next day and keep on going. So it's not one that I look at and go, "Oh man, let's just sell it aggressively," here overall. Most of the bigger winners out there today are really analyst driven. CSX, positive analyst commentary. Yesterday, negative analyst commentary. Today, positive analyst commentary. Union Pacific, replaced one of their executives. Got a couple upgrades. Big gap up here. Big gap up here today. So that's helping to really kind of drive that this morning. We saw a downgrade with U.S. Steel, but we saw the same firm come out and upgrade Nucor, and so it was kind of one of those where they just like Nucor better than U.S. Steel, but overall they like the industry. So hoping to push that higher. We see GM continuing to bounce here aggressively. One that I'm really interested in, I've been watching all morning, is Roku, and I haven't pulled the trigger on it here just yet. But this is a stock that was up monster yesterday with huge volume. Then this morning, Citron Research, who is noted for being quite bearish, came out and called the stock uninvestable. And talked about why. Talked about the fact that there's not a lot of short interest in it. Talked about the fact that there's not a lot of, or the competition with Samsung and Apple kind of partnering up. It kind of crowds Roku out a little bit. Some very interesting comments, for the short side. And we've seen the stock reverse and reverse aggressively. Now, they say there's no real short interest in it. You can see it's almost 10% shorted right? Now, this number will change after yesterday. That was a big squeeze yesterday, so it's probably down around 6%. Relative to the stocks that Citron typically talks about, 9% isn't much of a short interest there for the company. So, very, very interesting action. It's one that I haven't stepped into yet, here with Roku, but you can see the gap up in this kind of immediate sell on the Citron news or the Citron research there. If you look at the options on Roku, they're not crazy, but they're pretty crazy. 98% implied volatility. This week's implied volatility 118%. It's pretty much that's pretty much the market maker saying, you know what, we have no clue where this thing's going. We're just going to charge you a bunch, to get in here. If you want us to take the other side, you're going to have to pay up, and you're going to have to pay up pretty big, and rightfully so. Rightfully so with something of that nature that we see here today. But overall, we're not seeing a lot of real buy pressure come into the markets here today. It's one where yep, we have the gap, but a lot of things, like some of these banks, like Bank of America, some of these banks, some of the estimates were taken down this morning, but they were called fundamentally cheap, which is, we've talked about that. The fundamentals of these banks are impressively cheap, but they don't have that real growth element associated to them that will attract growth investors or momentum traders. It's still one where, it's value. So, rallies are going to get sold and dips are going to get bought when it comes to the banks. And, I still believe that to be the case. It makes me look at a Bank of America up here and go, okay, is this shortable? But bottom line, right, we have no real news on the trade talks, right? We have no real news on that. Tonight, U.S. President Trump is going to be speaking, and it'll be aired on all the major networks. And it looks like he's going to be talking about the wall and the government shutdown and all of that. But the biggest thing for investors or for the market is probably going to be his comments on the trade talks here with China that are still ongoing, that we've had relatively very little news here, overnight with. And I was a little surprised by that. I guess I probably shouldn't be, but I thought we'd see a little bit more, out of the rumor mill when it came to, the, the element of the trade talks and where that is going. But anyway, that will be ongoing, and that will be a big driver, right? That'll be a big driver, and I would not be surprised to see the market be very tepid ahead of that, here, meaning throughout the day, and, see just more volatility compression, really kind of carry on throughout the course of the day here today. All right. I want to show you something here that was put out on Market Watch, and it's the only. I generally don't really kind of watch some of these, but Mark Hulbert. He puts out some pretty good stuff. And yesterday we talked about the January effect, or this January indicator, where, okay, if January's up, the market's up the rest of the year, and kind of how flawed that was. And we looked at some of the data here for it. Today, Mark puts in some data here with it, and the first 5 days of January indicator bites the dust. Dow Jones Industrial Average gain after the first 5 trading days of January through the end of December. So when the first 5 trading days are up, what happens? And when the first 5 days are down, what happens? And you'll notice it's nominal. It just doesn't, it's pretty, pretty nominal there in terms of the difference, with it. And it just isn't something that, that you can say, hey, this is, this is something very relevant. Uses the term sloppy statistical thinking, which I loved. But anyway, if you want to check that out, it's right on the front page there of Market Watch. It's not, data full, but definitely has some interesting comments on that, and it kind of goes in line with what we talked about yesterday. January effect. You know what? Go out, look at the stars, and make some sort of thesis based on the stars and apply that to the market. It'll be just as effective as this whole January effect element here. All right. So anyway, that's that's some of the stuff that's going on. Here it looks like as I'm talking, we are seeing a further breakdown here in the market. It looks like it just took a 13-point drop. I'm looking at the news here to see if there's anything obvious that was released while I'm on video. I don't have all my news feeds up right here. But let me see if I can see anything real quick here. I don't see anything really right off the cuff here, but and there doesn't have to be, right? Let's make that clear. This isn't a market that there has to be news to drive these moves. We're up in a little bit of overbought situations, and with a lot of the short-term charts and some of the stuff that I talked about this morning. In my comment this morning, I mentioned that I'd be looking to buy some Honeywell this morning, or some UTX, or some Triple M, possibly some Bank of America. I didn't get any kind of buy signal here for them that I was comfortable with. One stock that I did get a buy signal on is First Solar. And, this is one that I'm always a little bit, nervous to buy, to trade. The options have come down a lot, but this morning they were about a 50-cent spread. But, I do not like some of the price action that we're seeing early on here with it. I think when you start to look at the early price action today in the market, it's not pretty. You take a look at some of the things like a Tesla that gapped up and is reversing. Now, he gapped up as, Larry Ellison, declared a $1 billion stake here in Tesla. But gap up, not holding. Seeing things like Micron, which had a really nice day yesterday. Big, bad, bearish engulfing coming in today. Wasn't able to hold the really early gain. And, if we see a lot of that, that's fairly ugly here overall, and is something where, we're just absolutely not seeing, buyers, step into this market, here today. And, you think about it, you just think about, where things have been, who's kind of a little overexposed going into the, some of the upcoming news and news events. Yeah, it's the longs, it's the longs. It was the shorts a week ago. It's the longs right now. And, it is something that they have to, there's going to be this is a little bit of a catalyst, for some profit taking here. Sorry, as I'm talking, I'm pricing out a put here on the SPY. Just looking at the pricing. Let me pull it up on this screen here, but you can see the SPY right here. Maybe. There we go. But if we just come to the January monthlies here on the put side, they're going for about 342, 384 for the 256 here. It's something where, a 60, 70 point drop, there's some money to be made in this option. And I think that's the risk factor here. I think, for the market is about a 60, 70 point drop. And so there's some money to be had on that option. If the market were to, have that kind of a drop. But I don't believe it would happen today without a real, news event, new news type of event. I think it's something that would, most likely, take place after, after U.S. President Trump's, talk here tonight and address to the nation. So for the challenge, I still sit in all cash. I will be anxious. Well, I am anxious to deploy it, but Yeah, like into the close yesterday, just not a lot that I loved, and kind of that same spot here. This morning, we'll see what the reaction high, reaction lows look like here, and if we see those broken, may give a little bit of opportunity. But a lot of reversals coming in at some pretty key spots, and if those reversals hold, that is something that could be argued bearish, but we could also see those reversals get reversed very quickly. It wouldn't take a heck of a whole lot, throughout the course of this day. Thanks for hopping on. Have yourselves a great one, and we'll talk to you later. Take care.